this week's episode. For those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, share the video if you can. Any kind of assistance with that will help. We're obviously trying to grow the podcast, and we've seen some pretty good engagement recently, so let's just try and keep that going. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the podcast platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review. All of that is appreciated. But let's get into the Arsenal segment then, Jonts. The other big game for this podcast of the weekend was Saturday, 3 p.m. Arsenal 2, Wolves 0. It kind of started off a bit slow, and I feel like the crowd were kind of a little bit surprised because there was not, like, it seemed like anyway on TV the atmosphere wasn't bumping. I think they expected a quick start, Arsenal, like they got used to last season, but it was kind of a bit of a slower approach, at least until the middle of the, getting to the end of the first half of the first half, where you had a couple of shots on target. I think Saka had one, and you were starting to, find your play and find, like, Odegaard was getting involved, and it was some decent play. And then boom, I think it's 25th minute, a nice bit of play from the wing. Saka cuts back, swings in a really nice cross into the middle between the goalie and the back of Wolves' back line. And Havertz swoops in to tuck it in with a really nice header to make it 1-0, going into the latter part of the first half. And then, kind of going a bit against the run of play, because I feel like you guys were much better in the first half. Wolves get a really good opportunity. Hwang Hee-chan with a great cross, which kind of catches Saliba a bit off guard. Strand Larsen nips in. He probably gets a bit too much on the header, and it's a bit central, but still Raya's going the other way, has to swing back and stick a big arm out. And he makes a really good save. But you made a good point just now, off camera. Raya was a bit lucky at the same time that no one was like following it in, because he didn't really push it into a safe zone. He kind of pushed it right in the middle. But luckily there was no Wolves player coming in to get the rebound. And you go in 1-0 up, which I feel like you deserved, because apart from that header, it was all Arsenal. I mean, you weren't loads of chances, but you had the ball and you were starting to, find nice patterns of play. Second half starts kind of in a similar fashion. Partey should really do better. I mean, I know it's on the edge of the box and there's some players in front of him, but he left foot he curls it pretty far off target. And then Wolves start to get into the game. They didn't create loads of chances, but they start to put pressure in. Their press was really good, really high. And bit of sloppy play, and you wanted to emphasize this, so we'll talk about this a bit more, between Raya and Saliba leads to a really good chance for Cunha, and your curse reversed itself, because really he should do a lot better. But Mateus Cunha just puts it right down Raya's throat and kind of makes it easy for him, when he could have, potentially equalised, or at least made Raya's life really difficult. And then almost like immediately after that, 5-10 minutes after that, quick free kick. I think Partey takes it, puts it out wide, and then beautiful goal from Saka, man. He gets the ball out wide, shimmies a couple times, sends Ait-Nouri. I don't know what Ait-Nouri's doing though, because Saka will cut in. It's a bit Robin-esque, right? You know what he's going to do a lot of the time, but you can't really stop it. And he cuts in. But I think what he does do beautifully is he kind of shapes to put it out, curl it out to the far post, and then just with his ankle whips back and slaps it in the near post, and Jose Sarr can't do anything about it. 2-0. I feel like it was a pretty good performance, but like United, it was kind of, there were moments where Wolves had more of the ball and kind of, pressured you guys a little bit, but you did well, and I feel like 2-0 was a fair result. I don't know who you want to call out particular for standout performances, but there were probably 2 or 3 people that probably deserve some praise. Who do you want to call out, Johns? You're on mute, mate.
Yeah, I mean, the main one I really just want to call out is Saka. I think he was, both of the goals that we scored, he was instrumental in creating, right? I think for the first one, that cross was unbelievable. It's a really weird, unconventional cross, because typically if you're on the right-hand side, you don't cross you don't left foot cross curling inwards to the front post. Yeah, you don't so it was a weird one to try and deal with. And I think it was just, I don't know if he did it on purpose or what, but it seemed like Havertz was obviously running perfectly into the play. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there. And I think, Havertz was obviously able to get in front of the goalkeeper and get his head to it first. So I think it was a really weird but great cross, and I think it was not really anything that Wolves could do about it. It seemed something very, very unconventional. And I think, Saka was instrumental in creating that. And then I think the second goal, I agree with you a little bit on the Ait-Nouri thing, but I will say this is that, like, Saka kind of did a step, so he cuts in, stops, kind of looks like he's going to pull it back out wide, and then cuts in again. He does does a double whammy that kind of leaves Ait-Nouri not really knowing where he's gonna go. And I think he did it quickly enough that he's able to get a shot away without Ait-Nouri really trying to close him down. Because really, if you've got somebody trying to close down your shot or block your shot, you don't really have an option to go near post, because obviously that's closer to where their foot's going to be. So you kind of almost always have to whip it to the far post. But because he did it quickly enough and his footwork was quick enough to kind of catch Ait-Nouri off guard, he was able to get it front post. And it's something I think Saka's really got better at in terms of finishing. And it's part of the reason why a lot of his finishes kind of look unassuming. And you almost look at them and think, oh, what the hell is the goalkeeper doing there? Because it's not in the corner. And yet he still manages to beat the goalkeeper with it, beat defenders with it too. And I think it's one of the things that he's done on his right foot also, is a lot of the time where he just laces it near post. Right, a lot of people think, the conventional wisdom is to go cross goal. Right, if you're going from the right hand side, cross goal, even if you're on your left foot, your right foot, regardless, down low is probably a better chance of you getting a goal. But he's managed to just kind of catch goalkeepers really off guard with the timing of his shots and the placement of them. So I think, like, he obviously does do, like in the England match, right, where he gets the equaliser. He can do the, like, kind of cross goal, far post shots as well, and they obviously do work. He places them really well, but he's able to just mix it up enough that goalkeepers can't really guess where he's going to go. And I think that's a big part of the reason why a lot of his goals look unassuming, but are actually able to get past and really difficult to defend or for a goalkeeper to try and save. So I've got to give him massive credit for that. I think Havertz again was good. Raya was good, apart from that, the pass that I didn't like to Saliba. I agree with you that Saliba definitely needs to do better. He just hammers it out or do something else, pass it back to Raya, whatever you've got to do. But I think the pass from Raya, it's just not necessary, right? Like, I think the amount of people that were around Saliba at the time and the lack of options he had is like, you're almost, the ball's going to have to come back to you or he's going to lose it, because there's like, unless he's going to do like the best pass of his life or, pull out a really, really unstoppable pass, like he chips it over somebody or something, generally speaking, he's probably going to make a mistake in that area. And so I just think the risk of passing it to him at that point was too high. But I agree with you that Saliba and Gabriel did not have their sharpest game. But yeah, I think Raya outside of that pass was really good. I think the header that he saved, can't remember who it was off, but the header that he saved was really good. Kind of lucky no one was coming in though. I think if Cunha or, more of a poacher type finisher was there for Wolves, I think that could have been something where you maybe see a goal conceded for Arsenal, but overall kind of can't complain about what didn't happen. So I think Raya played pretty well too. Outside of that, I can't really give anybody, crazy amounts of credit. It was good to see Martinelli back. He had one good chance that he really either should have squared to Rice or just smashed top corner, which he ends up putting over the bar. I think Rice was also decent as well. Hoping that the injury that he came off with is not too bad and he gets to come back for the Villa game and he's not out for too long. But yeah, overall, I can't really name anybody else that I really want to give a massive amount of credit to. I don't think Odegaard was crazy good. I don't think Ben White, Zinchenko, I don't think anybody had the best game. I know Partey made a couple of mistakes as well. Really just doing that kind of sleeping on the ball type of thing, which I didn't like. But overall, I think it was a comfortable win. Could have been a lot more uncomfortable had a couple of things gone against us, but happy with the performance overall. And yeah, pretty glad it was against Wolves and not somebody a little bit better, because we weren't at our sharpest.
Yeah, I feel like it was the perfect first game. Wolves are a decent team as well. They've obviously lost a couple of big players, Kilman and Neto, to name a few. So it was interesting to see how they play. But Gary O'Neill does a good job, because really they looked similar to how they did last season with those players. So he's a really good coach, man. We're firmly on the Gary O'Neill train over here at the social media derby. So you're not going to hear too much slander on him. But I feel like they did all right. And I feel like you guys just did what you had to. And you've got game winners. You haven't got as many match winners as City, and that's probably got to be your biggest worry. And you've got to hope that your team as a whole chips in. But Saka, you can rely on. You always basically have been able to rely on as soon as he came in the team. Odegaard will step up. I don't think it was his greatest performance, but I feel like he was tidy. He was all right. And I feel like he's one of those players. He needs to wind up. He needs a bit of time and some minutes in his legs before he starts to really purr. So I feel like he was all right. And Havertz, honestly, I know Havertz didn't have the best game, but he just gets those important, assists, goals without playing amazing, and that's something that actually you do want from your striker. So I feel like it was really positive, and you can't really take too many negatives out of it. I thought Jesus, when he came on, looked really good as well. I know there's gonna be all the banter about him being played with by the Colombian defender and all that.
By the way, how that guy did not get sent off, Mosquera, your mate, you are running a real tricky game there, mate, because you should have been sent off for what you did to, I think it was Gabriel, you did that first one too, and then he also was choking Havertz on the ground. And he managed somehow to avoid a yellow card on both of those occasions. And then the Gabriel Jesus one, Gabby Jesus gets a yellow card. How that guy has got away with that, I don't know. And I think that is the biggest indictment I can give again about the refereeing, right? Like, from the games I watched, there weren't too many like disgustingly bad decisions. I think that there was the one yesterday, what's his name, handballing for City as well, was also a bit dodgy.
Yeah.
But that stank. And how Mosquera stayed on the pitch, I will never know. And I hope that somebody has a word with him, because if he does that again to us, I'm going to find him a double foot in myself, because that is man sexually assaulting our bloody our can't finish his dinner striker. We're not having that, man. He's got enough on his plate already. Just get your fingers out.
Honestly, man. Oh, I think I missed that in the game live. So when all the when all the memes started floating about and the group chat started going off, that was absolutely hilarious. But at the same time, we don't condone that behaviour, and I don't know what Mosquera was doing. He got away with so many like sneaky little things. Yeah, bloody hell. Not the referee's best game, I will say. But yeah, no, I thought Jesus looked lively as well. So yeah, plenty of positives, man, I think, to take out the game and you move. You've got a really difficult game week 2. So it's good to get the points on the board with this one and get a should win turn into an actual win. Let's get on to another topic, which has gone a bit viral. It tends to always go viral. I don't know if it's because you guys are playing Villa next week, but we can thank AFTV for this particular one, because you've got Don Robbie interviewing Yardman, who's one of their regulars. And actually, it goes off. At some point, I think they might start swinging on each other. They're so angry. But the topic goes, and it starts, I think, for Don Robbie's talking about Arteta after Pep is the best manager in the league. Yardman loses his absolute marbles and says, no way, he's won nothing. And then Robbie obviously gets quite defensive, and he's very pro Arteta and quite pro the club since the old Troops and DT and all those days when they used to slander Wenger and all that kind of stuff. They flipped on its head a bit, and he's very much an understanding fan, which I think is good. But he argues, nope, Arteta is the second best, and Yardman comes back and says, no, Emery's the second best. And then, yeah, this topic explodes on the timeline, on social media. A lot of people taking very different stances on it. I wanted to get your opinion. First of all, have you seen the clip, and like, what do you make of this debate? And do you think do you agree with Robbie? Do you think Arteta's a better manager, or do you think Emery's the better manager?
I haven't seen the clip itself, but I've heard people talking about it. It's not just today and these last couple of days that people have been talking about it. Rival fans have been using this against us for quite some time now. They all say, you should have done better with Unai, and he is a much better manager than Arteta. He's done more. He's won back to back Europa Leagues, etc., etc. So it's not the first time I've heard it. In terms of the argument, I don't really know how to answer it, because I think it's first of all kind of a stupid argument. It's difficult really to say when you say who's the best manager in the league, because every manager is managing a different caliber of team. So it really comes down to expectation-wise, what do you expect from that team? And are they performing above or below it? And then you just can put credit to the manager on whether you think it's because of him that they're performing above their expectations or below their expectations. I think for Arsenal, yes, the expectation now is that we need to go and win the league. But when he first came second and we were kind of really pushing City that first season, the season before last, our expectations were not at that level, right? Our expectations were somewhere below that, and we kind of overperformed, and people were really happy with what we did. And everyone kind of put the plaudits on Arteta to say, it's kind of because of him that we've been able to get to that position. Now, for these last 2 seasons, because of that result, we've had our expectations much higher, and he hasn't been able to exceed his expectations, right? He's just been able to, in my opinion, stay in line with them, right? Satisfy the expectations. Because as much as everybody says they think Arsenal are going to win the league, I don't think anybody truly expects Arsenal to win the league, if that makes sense, right? I don't think bookies do. I don't think fans do. I don't even think the most deluded of Arsenal fans really expect us to win the league, right? They think we could, we can, we might, but we don't think we have to. Like we expect it to. A lot of rival fans are putting the jokes on us. You see Matisse, etc. You must. I get that, but then if you want to do that, all 6 of the top 6 teams, traditional top 6, etc., must as well, because you've all spent similar amounts of money for the most part. Why shouldn't you have the same expectations levied on you? So I think from that point of view, Arteta is not like a standout anymore because of the expectations that he's kind of set for himself with his overperformance a couple of seasons ago. Unai, however, more recently has exceeded the expectation set for Villa. So I think it's fresher in everyone's minds that Unai is a world-class manager or a really good manager because he's exceeded expectations for a team like Villa, who typically aren't expected to get into the Champions League spots. So from my point of view, I think it's just a stupid argument because you could look back at any point in time and you probably say, in 2022 or 2023, Arteta was the better manager because he overperformed. Now, when you look at it because of what Unai did last season, Unai's a better manager. So I don't really know how you can, emphatically say one or the other is a better manager. I think if you want to say who is the more successful manager for the, from the previous however many years of their career, I think you have to say Unai because he's won with Sevilla, he won back-to-back Europa Leagues. He's won Ligue 1 with PSG. I think he also won their version of the FA or the League Cup as well. He's won stuff, right? He's won stuff also more recently. I think was it the 2021 Europa League also he won as well. So he's a proven winner. I'm not going to say of the best competitions in the world, but he's definitely won a lot more than Arteta over the course of his career. So from that point of view, yes, Unai Emery is the more successful manager. But I think people are just translating more successful to mean better. Because let's be honest, Jose Mourinho is a much more successful manager than, I don't know, whoever you want to put in that kind of category. Let's say Klopp, right? You'd probably say Jose Mourinho is a more successful manager than Klopp. If you had to choose one of the two at the time, right now, to pick for your team who's a better manager, you're obviously going to go for Klopp. So it's a different argument, and people are just mixing up success previously with how good they are now. And I also think even then they're trying to use apples to orange comparisons to say who's better. So I'm not going to go in one camp or the other. I'm going to sit on the fence happily and say I think they're both really good managers. I think for either team, I think if you flip them around, I don't think they either could do the other's job. I don't think Unai could do what Arteta's doing at Arsenal right now. And I certainly don't think Arteta could make Aston Villa a top 4 team, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. So I just think it's a hard conversation to have. I think both of the managers should have a lot of respect. They should be given a lot of respect. But I know rival fans obviously want to do the whole comparison thing because they want to try and make out that Arteta is not as good as everybody says he is, or at least as good as Arsenal fans think he is.
Yeah, I mean, rival fans have been doing this for ages. I think this particular clip, obviously coming from Arsenal fans after a 2-0 win, is what's, I think, made it resurface to this level. Because it's a bit weird, isn't it? After a 2-0 win, having this conversation. I know there's always arguments within your own fan base and stuff like that. It's not isolated to Arsenal. We have it all the time. United, you have it in other fan bases. So it's not something to poke fun at Arsenal for in isolation. It's an interesting debate though, and it's funny to see where people have gone with it though, because I agree with you pretty much wholeheartedly with everything you've just said. I think who's been a better Arsenal manager? No doubt Arteta, because Emery just wasn't a fit and he didn't perform that well for Arsenal. And I remember Arsenal under Emery, it wasn't good, man. I know you got to a Europa final, but there were a lot of games where it was worse.
Losing to Watford and doing all kinds of ridiculousness, man. It was shocking at that point. Yeah.
It was worse than what we went through last season with Ten Hag in terms of performances. I remember 30 plus shots like happening regularly, right? Regular, like to the same level as what Ten Hag was, but there were no trophies, right? So Emery's time at Arsenal was not good. We can't look back at that and go now because he's doing really well at Villa and rewrite history and act like it was actually pretty good for Arsenal. It wasn't. But at the same time, he wasn't back to the same level. I know he got Pepe, but apart from that, he had some serious bums in that team. We all agree, right? That period of Arsenal was coming off the back of Wenger's last few years. It was bum central. You had a lot of crap in that team, so he was kind of hamstrung. And Arteta's been properly backed. Now you have to give Arteta credit for that, though. I will say you can't criticize Arteta for that. Clearly, Arteta is a much better manager above than Emery was, right? Because he's managed to convince whoever's above him that he deserves all of that when you were going through the stinky times with Arteta, eighth and all the jokes about that, right? You had trouble with him, but you got through it, and he got through it because he was obviously delivering some messages above of like assuredness of the fact that I am the right guy and that I'm doing the right things. That Emery clearly wasn't doing that because he didn't get back the same way, and as soon as things got real sticky, he got shifted, right? So you have to give Arteta plus points for that, but I don't think that's the argument in this case. Who's the better manager overall? It's a bit of an unfair debate, but if you're going to have it, it has to be Emery because he's won more, right? But I will say Arteta is a big club manager. There's a difference. He's proven that now in the last couple of years. He can handle being at the big club with expectation on him. Emery is not that. Emery needs to be at the tier below, and then he can overachieve. He regularly overachieves. That is his mandate. He makes overachieving and miracles look normal. That's what he can do, which is obviously a talent. And he's won loads of trophies, but he can't do it at the big clubs. So it's an unfair comparison when you compare it that way. But it's also an unfair comparison if you go, Emery's got so many more years than Arteta. Obviously, if he's a good manager, he's probably done more than Arteta will in a short space of time. But I will agree, it's not blank. You can't. I think both Robbie and Yardman are probably being unfair on this. Robbie's saying outright, you're crazy, but if you don't say Arteta just based on 2 second place finishes, not all clubs are equal. You can't say a second place for Arsenal is much better than a fourth for Aston Villa. For Villa, that is like winning the title coming from where they've come from, right? So you can't just say directly that that's completely, wiped out. But the same token, like you said, Arteta, when he finished second that first year, that was like winning the title because you weren't expecting that. You finished fifth before and eighth. We were shocked, all of us, right? Even Arsenal fans were shocked you made that huge jump. So you got to put respect on both their names, and I feel like it's unnecessary debate right now. It's perfect timing for the Villa Arsenal game coming up this week because it's going to bleed right into that. But yeah, Arsenal are not in the moment to do it. You're on mute again, mate.
Well, I'll just ask you, Ant, if you, as the Man United manager, as a Man United fan right now, if you lose Ten Hag at the end of the season and you've got both Arteta and Emery available, who would you take?
Me personally, I'm going to go for Arteta because the proof is in the pudding that he can handle a bigger club. Emery, in the back of my mind, I'm always going to be worried. He failed at PSG. He failed at Arsenal. Can he handle the madness that is Man United?
And he's going to explode at some point. Right, he's going to explode at some point because that's one thing you even saw kind of last season. He started to get very aggy with certain people. I think at Arsenal he also got very aggy with certain people, and it kind of goes to the whole managing above. I think it's just generally the temperament that is required. But this is my point is not to say that Arteta is a better manager, but it's exactly your point of depends who you are. If you're a Man United fan, if you're a top 5, let's say top 4 team outside of Aston Villa, you're probably going to say, I want Arteta because I know that project management to get really successful and be kind of the City of this generation is going to require a manager who has that kind of ability to plan out for the next 5-6 years and beyond, and also the ability to continue to convince ownership, management, whoever else, the media, that he is the right person to be in that seat. So I think everybody in those, or most of those fans would probably say Arteta just because of what he's been able to do with Arsenal, right? But I think every other fan, or at least the mid-table teams, the Villa type teams previously before Unai was there, would probably all say Unai because Unai's probably going to win you a trophy quicker, right? And as you say, he's probably going to overachieve in order to be able to do it, but he's going to win you some sort of trophy quickly, right? Or relatively quickly. and he's probably going to get you closer to that top four. But if you are now Villa, or if you are Newcastle, if you are somebody that is aspiring now to be the best team in the league, you're probably not going to go for an Unai type of manager. You're probably going to go for a project type of manager who you truly believe is going to, in the next 4 years, get you to the top of the game. Not just win a couple of trophies here and there that aren't necessarily the best trophies to win, but are trophies nonetheless. I think it all depends on who you are. And that's just my whole argument with this, is that it's really difficult to just say one versus the other, because they're not really close enough for you to be able to say that. I think if you looked at, like, let's say Maresca in 4 or 5 years and you compare him to Arteta now, you probably could do that comparison a bit easier, right? Or if you look at somebody like that, a Vincent Kompany, you could probably go in and compare him with Arteta and again in the next 3-4 years and say, oh, that's a fairer comparison based off of the trajectory of their careers. But with an Unai and an Arteta, it's a really difficult conversation to have. I feel like an argument that you could have with Unai is like Unai or Mourinho, who's a better manager? Like, those makes more sense in terms of the profile of clubs they've managed, the amount of time that they've done it, the trophies that they've won, etc. But for Arteta versus him, it's just a weird comparison. It's like saying who's a better manager between Kieran McKenna and Ten Hag. Like, there's not really any way to judge that, because one of them's been around for a year and never managed a club of the caliber of Man United, and the other one's been around for a lot longer and has managed now some pretty good teams. So it's just a weird comparison to have, and I think there's never really going to be any conclusive evidence of one being favoured over the other. So I think you just argue until the cows come home, and Robbie's one yard man and whatever else.
Possibly, or the other way around. But I just feel like, I mean, both sides, it gets a bit jarring, right? Because you've got really staunch defenders on both sides. Like, I do feel like, the way you guys back Arteta is beautiful in a sense, because I prefer you guys to back your manager than to do what happened to Wenger, right? That's not nice. No one wants to see that. But at the same time, Arteta's got to prove something. He's got to win it. Like, he's done everything right up until now, right? Even the 8th and 8th, you can't keep hammering them about that, because everyone's learning that can happen when your team's in the mud. But the next steps he's taken have all been good, right? But now this 4th challenging season, like, I know it's extremely difficult, but if he wants to be in that echelon of manager that I think some Arsenal fans are already putting him in, he's got to come away with something. I mean, like, the big dog trophies. Because if he comes away with the FA Cup or League Cup, you're doing essentially what Emery's doing, right? Emery could do that, or Ten Hag could do that. But if you want to put them up in that echelon, they've got to go and do what Klopp did, even if it was once. You've got to go there. That's the level you're trying to get to. And if you can't, then I feel like Arsenal fans are going to take it on the chin, because you're not going to be able to, like, stand behind some of the over-the-top claims of him being up there. Well, because what Robbie says, it's a little bit over the top, right? Because there are a lot of class managers in the league. Everyone starts from different points. But in terms of your team, you've been the second best team, definitely, in the league. You know, the manager stuff, the players,
doesn't mean
that's
the
hard
manager.
to debate.
Yeah,
exactly.
I agree with that.
And with Emery, I think Emery doesn't have anything to prove anymore. But what he is what he is. He can't go to those top teams. I'm sorry. I think
he's proven as the second echelon of manager.
He is what he is.
He can't. He hasn't proven, and I don't think he will ever prove that he's the top echelon of manager.
He's not. He's not. And I'm sorry. I know some fans, because they see his overachievements, will try and get him in the conversation again. He's had his chance. I know PSG is a bat crazy club, but Arsenal weren't a bat crazy club at the time, and he effed it. So unfortunately, that's the game, and I'm sure he'll be very happy at this level. And there's no disrespect to Villa, because they're a big, big club, but they haven't been in the big six and been at this top table for a long, long time. And the Sevillas and Villarreals and stuff that he's managed before are the same. But, there's no shame in that. Those are great clubs, and he can achieve and he can bring silverware. And if I was fans of those clubs, I'd be really happy with that. So, it's an interesting debate. Let's see. Obviously, there's going to be more banter off the back of it, either for Arteta or for Emery off the back of the result. I guess let's hope it's not a draw, because then I think it just keeps going on. But let's wrap up the Arsenal segment there then. Both of us 3 points on the board. I think we're both happy.